Hello and welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla. Of course, I am your mayor of PHNX. This guy next to me is the vice mayor. He's also Thunderstick, Jesse Friedman.
Nobody wants to see your knees, Derek. Why are you doing this to the people?
I don't know, because it's summertime and I'm ready. I'm ready for shorts and I'm ready for these dumb shirts I wear. But more importantly, I am ready for Arizona Diamondbacks baseball, and we have plenty of that to talk about, including Corbin Carroll and his contract extension that will keep him part of this organization for quite a while. This show is brought to you by the fine folks at the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. And yes, as you may have seen, we had an emergency podcast over the weekend. We
better have seen it.
Had also, go watch it if you haven't. Stop this one. Don't stop this one. Keep watching this one live. Go check that one out, maybe at the same time. Dual screen action. I don't know. But get down on the Corbin Carroll extension. Of course, if you might have missed it, Corbin Carroll signed a contract extension with the Arizona Diamondbacks, 8 years, $111 million, with a club option for the extra ninth year that could keep him here until he's 31 years old. Is that right?
Yep. Through his age 30 season, he would be 31 by the end of that year. Yeah.
So we have a lot more information now that it's been made official on the terms of the contract. But we had a chance to go to a press conference over the weekend with Mike Hazen and Corbin Carroll both speaking, and they elaborated more on why this deal was so important. But I feel, Jesse, like the big thing here is that Corbin Carroll, shrewd negotiator, still not just signing this deal because he's a young kid and doesn't know any better. In fact, we found out that he was quite involved in the process, but also just something that I feel like just helps him have that peace of mind that he's seeking to focus on baseball. And that, to me, honestly, seems like a big part of who Corbin Carroll is. He talked about it in the press conference, but he just wants to play baseball.
Yeah. I mean, I think we kind of suspected going into this that Corbin Carroll probably played a pretty significant role in this extension. And we have some clips from Joe Urban, Corbin Carroll's agent, that we're going to play later in the show, which I'm really excited for you all to hear. But yeah, suffice it to say, our suspicions were correct. Corbin Carroll is one of the most cerebral athletes that I've ever talked to. Granted, my journalistic career is still in its early stages, but Corbin Carroll, I mean, it's very clear when you talk to this kid. He's very thoughtful about how he speaks. Exactly.
Are you allowed to call him a kid?
I believe I have 2 years on Corbin Carroll, so I mean, at least I am older. At least I am older. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly no surprises that he was involved in this process, and that he wanted to be an Arizona Diamondback at the end of the day. We did find out, as you will also hear more about later in the show, this deal almost fell through many times, it sounds like, throughout the process, even going right down to the wire in the last few hours. Corbin Carroll's agent told us that there was a very real possibility that this would not happen. I think I can speak for every Diamondbacks fan and say that everyone is very pleased that this deal ultimately did go down.
Yeah, and Mike Hazen had a lot of good things to say about Corbin Carroll, especially when he's standing there like 10 feet away.
Did he ever? I mean, it's like a proud father moment almost.
But it's also the fact that you are very excited and proud that this deal got done, especially Hazen also commented on how it almost didn't get done. And again, there wasn't really a sense of urgency on Corbin Carroll's part, at least, to get this deal done, as much as there was a sense of urgency on the Arizona Diamondbacks' part to get this done. So I think if the deal didn't get done before the end of the season, negotiations would have cooled off. I believe Corbin Carroll was asked about that. Like, he would have gone into baseball mode, and this would have probably been just kind of tabled until the end of the season, potentially, so he could focus on baseball. But if Corbin Carroll has the kind of season that a lot of people are projecting him to, and we are hoping him to, then that price tag could go up significantly after the end of the season. So
yeah,
there was something on Corbin Carroll's end to lose here, and that is committing to this contract, to this deal, before he truly has his breakout season, which honestly could have probably gotten him some more money. And that's, again, why the sense of urgency was more on the Arizona Diamondbacks side.
Yeah, I think so. This is something that I was certainly initiated by the Diamondbacks in these situations. The team approaches the player and, says, hey, we're interested in doing an extension with you.
Want to make this thing long term?
Yeah. You want to, like, do you like us? We like you. Do you like us too? Is this mutual, or is ours just, we're just going to feel really awkward because we find out that you don't like us as much as we like you. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like what happened here is the Diamondbacks went to Corbin Carroll and didn't really know what to expect. Mike Hazen has a lot of experience in front offices going back to his time in Boston, his time in Cleveland before that. And he spoke in his press conference about how, generally speaking, when you go to players in these situations, you keep your expectations very low.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times guys who have played 32 games in the big leagues and haven't really had a chance to showcase how good they can be for a long period of time, they're not interested in taking less money than what they, very possibly could get if they were to go out and have the kind of year that Corbin Carroll very well could have. But, it sounds like both sides were able to work something out. And I think if you look closer at this deal, you can kind of see how this not only makes sense for the Diamondbacks, but I think there is a case here on Corbin Carroll's side, and you can really understand why this is something that he was comfortable with.
First, Jesse did describe every relationship with a woman I had in high school with that way that rant started off. But I also want to say that, Mike Hazen admitted openly during the press conference, which was a little surprising to me, at least. I'm not sure if Jesse feels the same way, but he openly admitted to having made mistakes in the past.
Yeah, and that was surprising.
And he brought up Paul Goldschmidt's name.
He said the name.
He said he's his name who can't be said. Actually, we have that clip. Here's Mike Hazen talking about why Corbin Carroll is such a priority to them, and also how he has learned on how this kind of deal can impact the locker room.
We're not guaranteed anything in these types of deals, right? We're not guaranteed. I don't know what the future is going to hold. I don't have a crystal ball on these things. So I don't know exactly where some of that will come down from a performance standpoint. But I do know some things, and I'll tell you exactly what I know about the human being that we're signing. That human being, I'm convinced of, goes to bed every night fixated on how he is going to be a better player the next day and what he could do to help the organization and the team win. And having that in your clubhouse with, let's be honest, with a contract behind him, frankly, I think sends a pretty strong message into that clubhouse that we did it last year with a couple guys. We're trying to anchor down around the players that are here that we've come up through our system, that we feel we know the most, that we've known the most since day one. We were lucky to be able to draft him, frankly. I said that to Corbin, not try to embarrass him, but we were lucky to be able to take him where we did. And this organization was lucky that player was there when we were able to draft him. And keeping him here for a long period of time, I've traded a couple players out of this organization that, they're, sliding doors. We have, Christian Walker. We've benefited from having Christian Walker here. But it's not lost on me that, trading Paul Goldschmidt wasn't probably, from a clubhouse standpoint, wasn't the best thing that I ever did, frankly. And, part of, I think, doing these jobs is trying to remain somewhat flexible about where some of the areas you may have gone left when you should have gone right were. And now having Corbin here, we're not going to be faced with that decision for the next 9 seasons.
Mike,
we know you went left when you should have gone right on that one, buddy. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with you on that. But yeah, you had lots of praise there for Corbin Carroll. Couldn't say enough about who Carroll is as a person, as just beyond his abilities on the field. They talked in this press conference at length about how dedicated he is to the game, how much he, how he just tries to go to sleep every single night thinking about how he can be a better player the next day. And honestly, the one thing about that, it all sounds like stuff almost every athlete says kind of as a cliche, but they say it in a way where it's almost unbelievable, the way that they've witnessed Corbin Carroll walk the walk instead of just saying that he's trying to get better. They see it every single day.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Hazen talked about Corbin Carroll basically having to break into Salt River Fields during the offseason.
Yes.
When he was doing his rehab, and I think in some of these more recent off seasons as well. Yeah, I mean, he's that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy who's going to put in as much work as anyone else. Obviously, if you're a pro athlete, if you've made it to this level, you're probably pretty dedicated to what you do.
Yeah.
I don't want to take anything away from other guys in that clubhouse, but Corbin Carroll, it sounds like, I mean, you just can't ask for any more than what he's brought to the D-backs clubhouse. Mike also told a story about when Jordan Lawler went through a very, very similar injury. Of course, we all know about the shoulder thing. With Diamondbacks first round draft picks, right? They all need shoulder surgery within a month or two.
That's right. Standard practice.
Yeah, standard practice. And Mike talked about how when Jordan Lawler had that injury and underwent surgery and all that stuff that Corbin Carroll went through as well, he went to Corbin Carroll and he said, like, hey, you got through this. I want you to make sure that Lawler gets through this too.
Yeah.
And Mike told us, he didn't really have any expectations. He just kind of said that in passing. And sure enough, Corbin Carroll and Jordan Lawler start showing up at all Diamondbacks games and, sitting down with scouts and talking about what they're seeing on the field and trying to learn and grow in every way that they can. Corbin Carroll is not going to be that, super vocal, loud, clubhouse leader guy, but you're talking about a guy who leads by example and leads his teammates in the right direction. That's a story that really stands out.
And I love the scouting aspect of him obviously getting injured and finding a way to use his time wisely when no one requested that of him. Nobody asked him to do it. It was just something he chose to do on his own. And it almost feels like he knows a cheat code, right? Like, and he wants Jordan Lawler to unlock the cheat code because it's like there's something invaluable about spending time where you would otherwise be sitting around not really doing much, learning from guys that can teach you things as an athlete, as a player, especially about being in that box and taking those at bats that no one else can really teach you. And to be honest, a lot of athletes, unless they're injured, don't have this kind of time to sit down and sit with scouts. So it's just a really valuable way that Carroll found to use this time. And it's just one example of the kind of person he is and the kind of player he is. They see this stuff, right? It's like a lot of things. We talk about what Torrey looks at during a spring training game, right? It's not necessarily the results on the paper because nobody gives a shit about the results of spring training games. It's how the players bounce back from adversity in some cases. Maybe, you had a clean game. That's great. That really doesn't tell us as much as you giving up 5 runs in the first inning and then coming out and pitching 4 scoreless after that or something to that effect. We've seen it out of Brandon Pfaadt. We've seen it out of Dre Jamison where they've had rough innings during this spring training and they bounce back. There's things like that they're looking at more than necessarily the fact that you gave up 6 earned runs.
Yeah.
With Corbin Carroll, it's kind of a constant monitoring process of his behavior and the way that he is committed not only to the game of baseball, but to the Diamondbacks organization. Mike Hazen had nothing but praise about that particular situation Jesse brought up because they were surprised to actually see him following through on something that they asked him for. But more importantly, they didn't really give him much information on what he should do to help Lawler along. He took the initiative to kind of make sure Lawler came to Chase Field and sat with the scouts and did the thing. So, like, I don't know, but Jesse does have more information on Corbin Carroll's contract, which does get bigger as the years go
analysis,
on.
Derek.
Let's break it down.
It's not just more information. It's hard-hitting analysis.
Hard-hitting analysis. Let's go.
You want to go numbers? You want to do the year-by-year breakdown thing? Is that what we're doing?
Let's go signing bonus first and then go from there.
Okay. All right. So we have exact details on what this contract actually looks like on a year-by-year basis, which we didn't have when we did our emergency pod on Saturday. So it's a $5 million signing bonus. Carroll will make $1 million in 2023, $3 million next year, $5 million in 2025. Typically, 2026 would be when he would hit arbitration for the first time. This lovely process that we've discussed at length.
There's a great reason to re-sign him now, to never go through that horrible fucking process.
The Diamondbacks will never go through arbitration with Corbin Carroll.
Gotta get an Arizona iced tea out here right now.
Right. But yeah, so $10 million for 2026, which is a pretty healthy number to start out in arbitration. That escalates to $12 million 2027, $14 million 2028. Those are your 6 years that would have been under control anyway. So those 6 numbers that I just gave, those are salary figures that the Diamondbacks have essentially locked in on years that they would have had team control over anyway. Now they just know exactly what they're going to pay for those years.
Which, in all honesty, are substantially more than he would have received.
Potentially.
Like, it's not to say that Corbin Carroll's value might not have skyrocketed to a superstar level prior to those arbitration years, but for the most part, it's kind of guaranteed money that is higher than what he was going to be getting. That's what I feel like. I mean,
think that's
still,
possible.
you know what I mean? Like, it remains to be seen.
It's a total of $50 million, all the numbers that I've given so far. So the D-backs are committing $50 million to Corbin Carroll through 2028. And if the Diamondbacks hadn't signed this extension, they still would have had team control through 2028. Corbin Carroll, frankly, would have to play really dang well in order to make $50 million through the normal arbitration process. He would have made probably under $1 million for the next 3 years instead of making $1 million, $3 million, then $5 million. And then those arbitration figures are pretty good too. They're definitely near the upper tier. I want to say that his name is eluding me. Francisco Lindor, that's the name. Francisco Lindor, I believe, made about $52 million through his last year of arbitration. And he obviously had some outstanding years, in his early days with Cleveland and whatnot. So you have to be really good in order to get to that number just naturally. So the D-backs are putting a lot of faith in Corbin Carroll, even in those front 6 years. And then the real extension part of this happens in 2029. These are the additional years of club control that the Diamondbacks get. They're guaranteeing Carroll $28 million in 2029, $28 million in 2030, and then 2031, you have a $28 million option with a $5 million buyout. So the D-backs are essentially buying out the 6 years they already had at a reasonably high number, a number that Carroll would have had to play very well to actually receive. And then they're adding on 2 years guaranteed at $28 million. Those would have been free agent years. And then the opportunity of getting one more of those years in the form of a club option in 2031. So when you put it all together, Derek, it's kind of like, like $111 million. We talked about the Julio Rodriguez number and the Wander Franco number and some of the other numbers that we've seen in similar extensions over the last few years. But I mean, looking at this, you can see how from Carroll's perspective, it's like, like this is actually a pretty favorable deal in some ways. And of course, he has the opportunity to tack on even more to those $28 million years if he finishes somewhere in MVP voting. So,
which we know he will.
Which
I don't have a crystal ball, just like Mike Hazen, but I think that's the case. 9 years, $154 million maximum.
Yeah,
is still a pretty decent amount of money.
I assume he would have to win MVP like all 3 of those years in order to actually max that out entirely. But
fine.
Is that going to happen? Did the crystal ball tell you that's going to happen?
I'll let you know. But I will say Corbin Carroll discussed at this press conference how he feels now that the deal is done. And he also talks about what it means to the clubhouse. You'll get to see a little glimpse into Corbin Carroll being thoughtful, as we've talked about, because he does take a moment during this press conference to think about the question I asked, which you might not be able to hear. He gets asked, how does this kind of translate over to the clubhouse? What does this mean to his teammates and things like that? And he does the Corbin Carroll move he does the Corbin Carroll thing where he thinks about it for a second and then gives us an answer.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. I didn't really go into it thinking, I need to get something done. To me, it felt like kind of just, it needed to make sense to both sides in terms of what you're giving up in terms of risk and leverage. And, when we got to a place that was a win-win, I thought it was a no-brainer.
Mike talked about a message to the clubhouse, trust in you, trust in the young guys. What does it, to get your deal done, what does it say to the rest of the team, I guess?
What does it say to the rest of the team? I think it says a lot about, what's to come. I think it talks a lot about the backing that we're going to have in terms of if we go out there and play, our baseball and have a successful team, that, we're going to have all the support. I think that's a lot of that.
And I talked about that a bit during our breaking podcast the other day, but it really does send a message to the locker room that, we want to keep you guys here. There might be, the adverse effect to a deal like this is there might be some bad feelings. There might be some people that aren't thrilled that they didn't get a contract extension, and Corbin Carroll, that is, a much younger player,
you have to kind of understand though, right?
I think they do.
Who in the D-backs clubhouse right now is like, darn, I should have gotten an extension.
I don't think it's that, but I think for instance, we know that Zach Gallen is a priority, and we know that as time moves on, that seems to be less and less likely. And so that's the main one I think of. I think of other guys like Jake McCarthy and, for instance, Team Mexico's Alec Thomas. These are guys that might be just motivated by the fact that someone like Corbin Carroll got this deal, because they are also part of this core that the team is building. Gabriel Moreno,
that's a good point.
Another guy. Moreno is another guy who I think, could kind of play towards that and want that same contract extension. And I think those are guys that they could potentially extend, right? So it's about getting to them early enough in their career and making it sensible for a team like the Diamondbacks that is never going to have the payroll that some of the teams in the NL West have. So deals like this are the only way that they can build towards success.
Yeah. And I wrote about that at gophnx.com, basically making the case that the D-backs kind of had to do this.
Yeah, they really did.
It is a risk, right? I know that $111 million, we can have the whole conversation about like how many WAR Corbin Carroll is projected to post and how the value of that WAR far exceeds the value of this contract. We can certainly go there. But the reality is that players, before they reach free agency, any good player is going to substantially outperform their rookie contract no matter what.
For sure. For sure.
So
especially when he's the fastest man in baseball.
Especially that.
Right?
Especially that. And all of the other things that he does as well. So this is a big investment for the Diamondbacks, no doubt. I think $111 million over 8 years, you can do the math with the AAV and all that stuff. Again, because the D-backs are buying out so many of these, these pre-ARB years and his 3 ARB years that normally would be so cheap, you can't really do an AAV on this whole contract. You can be like, the D-backs, $13 million a year, whatever it is, that's so cheap.
No,
that's not really how this works. Like the D-backs are basically paying quite handsomely for the 6 years that they already had.
Right.
And then they're saying, we think Corbin Carroll is worth $28 million a year when he hits free agency right now, 6 years from when that actually would have happened. That's a gamble, right? That's absolutely a gamble. But I made the case in that story that for the Diamondbacks, it's a move they have to make. Think about what Corbin Carroll could be worth if he becomes the player that we think he'll be and he hits the open market at age 28. You could be talking like, we talked a lot about free agency this winter and what, the Trey Turners and Dansby Swansons and Xander Bogaerts of the world got. Compare that with what, Corbin Carroll will be younger than, I believe, all of those guys, maybe with the exception of Dansby Swanson when he hits free agency, and with how good a lot of people think he'll be. You could be talking about a contract that takes him to age 40, right? You could be talking about $200-300 million. And I don't know if that's an investment the Diamondbacks realistically would be able to pursue.
Brett Johnson's going off about Chris Rose in the comments, but I understand the hypocrisy, right? We praise teams like the Atlanta Braves for doing the exact same thing the Diamondbacks do. Maybe it's because did with this. Maybe it's because the Braves have done it with their entire team, and the Diamondbacks really have just locked in a couple of guys, especially Carroll for the long term. It's a little different. But the idea that it's too early for Corbin Carroll, I think, is pretty absurd to most people that know what Corbin Carroll has done already at this point in his career, that have met him, that have spoke to him. It's like Mike Hazen said, so much of it is about the character of who he is and the kind of guy that they want to make a long-term member of this organization. But there were different structures, and the relationship between Corbin Carroll's agent, Joe Urban, and Mike Hazen was a big factor in making this deal happen.
Yeah.
And of course, we talked a little bit about how this deal almost fell apart, but here's some more on this deal from Carroll's agent, Joe Urban.
There were a lot of iterations. Yes, we had, again, like I said, it's not like we do these every day. It's not like Mike does them every day. It's not like the Yankees do them every day. So but there are and have been different structural contracts lately. Julio's is way different than Wanderers. This is way different for the most part in length and value than Michael Harris, and very different than Corbin Carroll's. So I think there was a point in time where we said, well, what about this? And they said, we're not going to do that, but what about this? And I think that if Hayes and I didn't have the relationship we had and the ability to speak directly to each other the way we did, it could have fallen apart many times because of the different iterations we both put in front of each other.
obviously, again, there, Mike Hazen, like you said, right out of his mouth, that this deal could have fallen apart had they not known each other the way they did. And I know Mike Hazen has done a great job at establishing relationships around Major League Baseball, but this once again goes to show how important it is that, especially for a team like the Diamondbacks that are never going to have the payroll that some of these other teams have.
Yeah. Apologies for the audio not being as top notch as we try to make it around here. This is what happens when I record the audio rather than Derek using his fancy setup.
So he refused to buy a mic.
I take
just
responsibility.
Will not buy a mic.
We have one more clip from Urban, which I think the audio on that one's maybe slightly better.
Okay.
There is a part at the very end that I'm concerned might blow some people's ears off. So just so everyone's forewarned. But now that we've got that on the table, so the connection between Joe Urban and Mike Hazen, we asked about that as well in this interview. Joe Urban has been an agent for CAA for a long time. CAA is one of the most commonly used agencies across baseball. He's been there for a while, and he explained to us that when Mike Hazen was back in Cleveland, when he was working as part of that organization, Joe Urban had one Grady Sizemore as one of his clients. And so, they were part of some negotiations way back then. Joe also told us that he sat down and talked with Mike Hazen after Hazen did not get the GM job that he tried to get with the San Diego Padres. So they have quite a history. And know each other very well. And so it sounds like, as you heard Joe in that clip, it sounds like a big part of this was Joe being able to be very honest and upfront with Mike Hazen, like, yeah, this is going to work. This is not going to work. We would consider this. We wouldn't consider this. And kind of getting past a little bit, kind of that, business speak a little bit, where you're constantly trying to like make sure you don't give up too much leverage.
I'm buying a car right now, so I feel this. I feel this in my soul. This is exactly what me and the car salesman they're going through right now. This dance, and I wish we could just be honest with each other, but we can't. We have to lie to each other.
It's part of how it works.
It's part of how it works.
It's part of buying a car.
Yeah, Jesse's trying to help me out. I'm not listening, but it is what it is. We have more from Carroll's agent on Joe Urban.
He actually let his guard down. That actually was, listen, he is, as much as we like to call him a machine or a robot, he's not. He's obviously a human being, very thoughtful, very quiet, very, he was ecstatic. In fact, I think he saw when he saw Hayes, I think he gave him a hug before he even passed his physical, and I was like, pass that physical, part of the contract.
I don't believe that Corbin Carroll's not a machine. I don't believe that, but that's what he was talking about there about Corbin Carroll. And
yes,
he's definitely very thoughtful, as we showed in that clip earlier. We talked about this a bunch, but he's just a very thoughtful individual, and he's a guy that at this point is definitely growing as a baseball player. I think that he has, like we've talked about before, he's matured quite a bit just in what we've seen from him from the end of last season to now. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the organization. Like, this deal makes a lot of sense, and I think it's not like, as much as we want to immediately peg this as a team-friendly deal. Like Jesse
Corbin
pointed
Carroll's
out,
getting $28 million.
He's getting a lot of money,
right, over 2 years when he's literally played in 32 games. Yeah. But no, I love that story that Joe told there about Carroll letting his guard down when the deal was made official, how he gives Mike Hazen a hug before he actually passed the physical. And Joe Urban was like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be, giving hugs just yet.
Yeah. But I'm all for it.
You're all for it.
I love it. I think it again shows what kind of person he is. And you said it about Mike Hazen, right? Mike Hazen did sound like a proud father at this press conference.
Yeah.
He was just gloating about his tremendously talented son. And I would feel the same way. He's a fantastic player, and we can't wait to watch him grow further on this team, maybe become the face of this team. We talked about that a bit. Does Corbin Carroll become the crown jewel of this organization, and they completely build around him? He's a great guy to do that around, and there's a lot of young players in a similar age range that they can do that with.
We're just going to talk about Corbin Carroll for the first 30 minutes of every show.
Correct.
For 2 months, 3 months.
Welcome into the Corbin Carroll podcast. My name is Corbin Carroll, occasionally known as the mayor of PHNX. This guy's also Corbin Carroll. But The bigger question we have is, how are we going to watch Corbin Carroll this year? And that is still up in the air, because now we have new information about the fact that Major League Baseball is set and ready to broadcast Arizona Diamondbacks baseball games, and not just the Diamondbacks, but the other teams with extremely team-friendly contracts in relation to Diamond Sports Group and this bankruptcy that they're currently going through.
Reds, Guardians, Padres.
Yep, and those were the other teams that we talked about were also in danger of potentially having missing their rights payment the way the Diamondbacks have. Up to this point, Diamond Sports Group still has until this Thursday at midnight to make that payment. So we will see how that situation evolves throughout this week. But it looks like MLB is, in fact, already set to broadcast a half a dozen games from these 4 teams.
Yeah. I mean, it's happening quick. This is all happening very quickly. And an interesting part of this story is that they use the word free, Derek.
They are going to be free baseball games.
I don't know if I believe that.
Would they just be on MLB.com?
I'm wondering, and someone asked me about this on Twitter as well, and I don't know if I have a firm answer. My guess is that for out of market, you would still have to pay, because like, wouldn't that kind of compromise MLB.TV if suddenly like certain teams could be watched for free no matter what? Like, what about all these people who already paid for MLB.TV and suddenly the team that they want to watch, those games are now free? That doesn't really line up for me. So maybe it's like in market would be free, which would be incredible. I mean, that's not going to last, but that would be incredible. But
it's only
I'm
half a dozen
speculating
games.
At this point.
That's the thing, is it's
fair.
not that many games, so it's not like they're talking about broadcasting the entire season for these teams. But what's interesting is that they are already planning on doing this, and it sounds like Diamond Sports Group has already kind of told them that these 4 teams are the ones that we are definitely not paying going forward, right? Because these were the teams that were kind of late additions, and Diamond Sports Group added the regional sports networks rights for an enormous amount of money. We talked about the Diamondbacks deal being very team friendly. And to be honest, the one thing about that deal is that there's a good chance that they might be losing the most money on the Diamondbacks when you take a look at the other 3 teams. The other 3 teams are the San Diego Padres, the Cleveland Guardians, and the Cincinnati Reds. So maybe the Reds are the only one that's close to the Diamondbacks as far as the team not really being as popular, but those other 2 teams, extraordinarily popular, had a very good season last year.
I mean, it also has to do with your market size, though, right?
That's true.
Like
San Diego
is not great. It's fairly big, but it's not as big of a metro area as Phoenix. So even though the Padres are, obviously there's all sorts of excitement surrounding that baseball team right now, the market is just significantly smaller than Phoenix, Arizona. So
and in California, as a state, the Padres have many very good teams to compete with as far as for fans, right? Like, you could be a Dodgers fan, you could be an Oakland fan, you can be, well, not Oakland fan, but you could be a San Francisco Giants fan. There's a lot of other options besides the Padres, a team that has never won the World Series. So, you're not exactly getting maybe that out of market, out of San Diego love that you would.
That's probably true.
In a city like Phoenix, where we should have the whole state, but we don't. I told Jesse I have this wild thing revelation that I've experienced during spring training and seeing these away games that Jesse and I go to be packed with fans. Like the Diamondbacks, the one thing that they don't have is that they're a newer team in a city where a lot of people have already committed their being a fan to a different fan base, right? So when we go to like a Royals game, even the stadium's packed with Royals fans. You don't even see that level of commitment at a Diamondbacks home game in the city, in the state that this team plays. So like, I almost feel like baseball fans here in the state are just all divided up amongst their allegiance, because most of us have been watching spring training games and watching our favorite teams play here in the Cactus League our entire lives. So you don't really
enables you almost.
Because
like, you don't need to change your team because your team is going to play
here for a month here, and you'll get to go watch all the games here
locally. And everyone
locally.
at the stadium is going to be rooting for the same team that you are, basically.
Versus if you live in like Minnesota and you're, I don't know, let's say you're, a Marlins fan for some reason that lives in Minnesota, right? Like, eventually with time, you're not going to give up.
Do you think there is a Marlins fan that lives in Minnesota?
There's 2 of them. There's 2 of them, but
they're brothers.
Right. But my point being, eventually you're going to kind of come around living in the city to those teams. Like, even if not, you're going to eventually say like, well, the Marlins are my NL team, but I kind of root for the Twins because I live here and stuff like that. Like, it's just I feel like it's just a different thing here with the Valley already being a giant melting pot of people that came from other places, mixed with the fact that baseball is an older sport that we tend to root for the same teams that our parents rooted for and our grandparents rooted for. The Diamondbacks being such a young team, there's just a lot of things there. But really what it comes down to is when we talk about these television rights and regional sports networks rights, it doesn't really feel like when you watch a Bally Sports Arizona game, like they have, the best advertising and the best dollars coming into that company for these games and things. We've seen all the weird commercials that we experience during any of our local teams broadcast, right? But I just don't know. I don't know how this is going to play out. Like, when we question the free aspect of it, but the free aspect of it still relies on MLB having to now take over these rights. And, I don't know how they're making money in this situation besides advertising revenue, which based on the expedited timeline still feels like it might not be enough time for them to really get this stuff in place.
Yeah.
But baseball has sponsors, they have partners, they have people that they can turn to that now they can offer, this advertising space on these games, and these companies will take them up on it. Yeah. It's just an interesting situation, and it continues to kind of turn, I think, not in the Diamondbacks' favor, right? Like this entire television deal, just everything that's happening seems to get worse. The Diamondbacks were the first team that they missed their rights payment for. They are one of 4 teams already that the Diamondback or that MLB is admitting that they are going to carry games for. So it looks worse and worse as far as this situation between the D-backs and Bally Sports Arizona goes.
Yeah. For people who have asked, this article, which is from the New York Post, does say that Major League Baseball plans to keep teams' existing broadcast crews. So I know that's something that I kind of was wondering early on. Maybe some folks out there have had the same question. So I think we're still Steve Berthiaume, Bob Brenly, Jody Jackson, Todd Walsh, all the same people that you're used to seeing. I think we'll still be on those broadcasts. But yeah, I don't think this is going to be a half dozen games, Derek. I think we're talking about something that's probably going to go on for a while. Major League Baseball, I think it could start out being free. Like I said earlier, I don't think it's going to stay that way. But I mean, I guess for fans, maybe this is a kind of a win for fans in the interim. Like if there's any period of time where you can watch in-market Diamondbacks games for free, that's a pretty big win. Like I'd be very curious to see how many people kind of jump on the bandwagon of this young baseball team and maybe get kind of excited about this baseball team because, hey, they can actually watch these games that maybe they've been trying to watch for years and years and just, didn't want to pay whatever they had to pay in order to get there. So
fantastic.
That part of it could be a good thing for the Diamondbacks when it's all said and done. But yeah, from a financial standpoint, D-backs, as we talked about the other day, already missed out on a rights payment. And it sounds like their TV deal is one of the worst in this situation, one of the ones that will be compromised the most.
Well, we do have the opportunity to grab ourselves a Four Peaks and sit down, watch these games on MLB, however they decide to broadcast them. So make sure to find your favorite Four Peaks beer. One of my favorites is the Hop Knot IPA. Of course, you can find them all around the valley, wherever you get your local beers. And also check out their 8th Street Pub. They have spring training tours through the month of March that are absolutely a blast. Ghost stories, how beer is made, all sorts of things you can learn. You also have fourpeaks.com/events for all your beer week entertainment needs. And the best place to spend St. Paddy's Day is Four Peaks 8th Street Pub, of course. Hang with your favorite degenerates, not me. I will be at Taylor Swift in all transparency. But you guys have a good time and enjoy a damn good meal out there. Must be 21 years or older to enjoy. And enjoy responsibly. And speaking of a damn good meal, sometimes we don't have time to grab a damn good meal, and that's why Circle K is the absolute best, because you can fill up with our friends at Circle K. You can grab yourself a meal to go. You can even get yourself some snacks for later. Check out your local Circle K for the best coffee, beer, snack selection. Get your Four Peaks beer at Circle K and premium gas. We are very excited to partner with our friends at Circle K. So to kick things off, we are giving you guys the opportunity to win some gas. To kick things off, we've teamed up for an amazing giveaway opportunity. Text PHNX to 31310 for an opportunity to win a $500 gas card. See show notes for details. And of course, we know what we do every day here. We get snacks from Circle K. That's one thing we do. Every day on this show is Earth Day. Every week on this show is Shark Week. And every Monday on this goddamn show, we go to the mailbag. Damon, let's go.
My mailbox, always something interesting in my mailbox. I try to get to everything in my mailbox. And then once in a while, there's a letter that makes me go, wow, wow. My mailbox, always something interesting in my
Jesse has a correction on, because I can't read. Apparently, those 4 teams aren't the only teams at MLB. They were talking about a half dozen teams, not a half dozen games. But they talked about that it wasn't going to be the full season, so
the details are still pretty murky.
They're still murky, and who the other teams are still is going to come out.
I think it'd be kind of hilarious though if Major League Baseball was like, "Yeah, we'll do it for a week, but then you're on your own.
You're on your own. Figure it out.
Yeah, we'll
better
step
call
in
Channel 3 or something.
We'll rescue the situation for 1 week." And then we'll just leave you to whatever you could figure out. That will not be happening.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll take over. We already talked about it. I'll be your color. This guy's going to be your play-by-play.
There we go.
We got it. We got it going on. But tell you what, who else got it going on? You guys do with your questions. Can we get our first question there, Damon? It comes from Ryan, who's here. Hello, Ryan. Hanley in our comments says, you are getting ready for a road trip. You stop at Circle K. What specific snacks and drinks are you walking out with? This is such a goddamn good question. I love it so much.
I have a weakness for gas station donuts.
Really?
Just gonna throw that out.
Wow. Like, are you okay when they're stale and they've been sitting there all day? Like, does that impact your decision at all?
At some gas stations, I will encounter that, but at Circle K,
no,
I never encounter that.
No, they're not, because they're in that little container that keeps them fresh all the time.
They're well packaged. They're always fresh.
Yeah.
And they're pretty darn good. I know donuts at gas stations get a bad rap sometimes.
They do.
But
they do.
Circle K is a little different.
I like a Circle K apple fritter. I am all about
the sugary snacks when I go to Circle K. So of course I'm grabbing myself the Wrigley worms, the sour Wrigley worms, which I can't eat.
You're not going to like get something super healthy necessarily.
No,
right?
you're absolutely not.
At least for me, that's never my perspective.
And I don't know about you. I know you take a lot of road trips by yourself, right? But we also have the idea that whenever I'm driving, whenever I'm on a road trip, I seem to be the one driving, right? So it's like everything I look for in my Circle K when I'm getting my road trip snacks is like sugar. It's sugar.
It's just to keep
to keep me awake and to keep me amped. Like, I don't want anything that's going to soothe my nerves, because that's not how I drive. I don't drive in a passive way. I drive in an aggressive way, right? I am fully. This guy over here often asks me how I got to the studio from the station so fast. He comes in or from the.
I'm just
game.
saying I'm not a slow driver, and there have been a few times when we left a certain place at like exactly the same time, and we're both going to the same place, and Derek just shows there 10 minutes before I do. And I'm always a little concerned about how that happened.
Well, he's not with me, so he doesn't understand. But yeah, I'm glad.
I'm glad I'm not with you in those situations. I think.
I'm also picking up, I'm going to tell you guys, a 0 sugar watermelon Monster, because it is the best Monster that exists. And that is what I'm getting in my system for me to drive for. I'm only going to 2 places. I'm going to LA or I'm going to Las Vegas. That's the only places I'm going on a road trip. Any place farther than that is out of my road trip zone at this point in my life.
That's fair. I mean, like up north somewhere, like Flagstaff.
Around the state for sure. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, sometimes those can be the most fun road trips, to be honest, like the in-state stuff. So and then you got plenty of opportunities to get plenty of Circle K on your trip. So do that. All right, what else we got, Damon? Gabriel asks at Boldest Bronze on Twitter, if you had to put money on the next extension candidate, who would you pick? I don't mean who will just get an offer. I mean, who will accept it. That last part's a Zach Gallen reference, isn't it? I get that reference. I did it. All right. So who do we think will actually accept it? Jesse, I'll let you start.
If I've got to put money on it, I think Jordan Lawler is probably the name that comes to mind for me.
Really? Wow.
I think that it's a similar setup as Corbin Carroll, right? He opens 2023 in AA. Maybe he finds a way to get up to the big leagues at the end of the year like Corbin Carroll did. And as I talked about in our emergency show the other day, maybe we're having a similar conversation about a Jordan Lawler extension around this time next year. That's far-fetched. I mean, I wouldn't count on it happening that soon necessarily, but if Jordan Lawler comes up and makes an impression and the D-backs feel as strongly about him as they do about Corbin Carroll, it would only make sense for them to try to lock him up long-term as early as they can.
I only have one single person I can think of, and that is Team Mexico's own Alek Thomas. I think there's a good reason because I do think Alek Thomas is going to have a bounce back season, especially compared to the second half and being sent down and things like that.
Very fair.
But I really think that prior to extending Jordan Lawler, I think Alek Thomas is a priority. I also think just financially, it's a smart move. It's a savvy move because, again, before this guy's career potentially blows up, you might want to sign him now. He really has already showed that he has all the tools. I said it. I said the thing. I said all the tools. But I think,
you're mixing up the Kings.
I know. Alek Thomas, though, he very much, I think, it had the normal kind of minor league career. Like being sent down is part of almost every minor leaguer's journey at some point. You got your guys like Dre Jameson who say stuff about how they don't ever want to be sent down, but that's just not the case. Sometimes it's not even about your performance. Sometimes it's merely about the fact that you might be one of the guys with options left and they just send you down simply because they need to make some other moves in the meantime. And for now, they don't want you to miss any starts. And you're a person that can, of course, be called back up, after they do that. However, I just think that there is just something about Alek Thomas that still seems like a very good player. Maybe not as long-term of a contract as they gave to Corbin Carroll, but maybe something a little bit more like we saw for Ketel Marte or something that gets us kind of through maybe these arbitration years without them having to do that. And again, show that commitment level. I feel a lot of this is about showing their commitment level to the young players and showing that they want to build around them.
Alek Thomas, definitely another name that I have in mind, and maybe even a little bit less far-fetched, honestly, than Jordan Lawler. Like Jordan Lawler, that'd be a really big deal. And like, we were talking about earlier when Mike Hazen approached Joe Urban, Corbin Carroll's agent, about this whole extension thing, he didn't really expect that, this would actually be something that could get done. And the situation would be similar with Jordan Lawler. I have no idea if Jordan Lawler would even be interested in signing that kind of a deal. I think with Alek Thomas, he's a little more established in the organization. Maybe he feels a little bit more tied to some of his teammates and wanting to be here in the long term. And I think if Thomas comes out and has a good year this season, he's definitely a guy that I would be looking at next offseason as an extension candidate.
Our next question comes from Brett Johnson, and Brett writes into us and asks, do you think the WBC and videos like this will really make the D-backs focus on more concession line issues? It's been an issue for years, and it makes the upper and lower levels almost unbearable to sit in. This was my bad. Did you by chance have that video, Damon, that was connected to that?
No, I didn't download it.
Okay, that was my bad. But the video that he was referring to was basically a concourse video at Chase Field that showed a extremely long line.
Pretty bad, yeah.
And basically the tweet was that every single concession stand at Chase Field looked like that. Now, I wanted to ask you, since you were there,
it was not like that.
Were they all open?
I think that every place was open.
Okay.
Was every place not open for this video? Is that the difference?
No, I don't know that.
Many places
that
open?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. But the lines were just ridiculously long. Now, I don't think that there's much that they can do about it if every concession stand is open. Right. And these lines they're not necessarily for the biggest. It's not like this is just a Hungry Hill line or a Chick-fil-A line. These were like for just your standard,
just everything,
sidewinders or whatever they call it, double headers or things like that, right? So it's just really odd because honestly, it's a capacity issue. It happens at a lot of events that I've been to, and it happens to events at Chase Field. Elton John was an absolute nightmare at times to go try to use the restroom or go to a concession stand, and that's because they packed that building absolutely full. I will say that even at Innings Fest, you had to know that you needed to go to the bathroom 15 to 20 minutes before you actually had to go through the bathroom. Because if you were standing in that line doing the pee-pee dance, good luck. Nobody had any sympathy for anybody that day, right? So these events are getting, especially the more popular events that are bigger capacity with a lot of people at them, they're just, unfortunately like this. But I don't really know what a solution is. Nicholas in the comments said, upper deck, not every food space was open last night. They were crazy at the beginning, but died down as the game went on. Eat and drink beforehand if you go either way.
Yeah.
That's a great point. There's so many good places in downtown for you to stop and grab something to eat at anyway. But again, there's a lot of people. These games mean a lot to a lot of people, and especially last night's game. We have video of the crowd from last night, but it was an insane atmosphere. Jesse was there, and I don't know a solution, because that's the exact kind of atmosphere you kind of want at a baseball game. But long lines and things like that are all a part of it.
Yeah, it is kind of a be careful what you wish for kind of a thing. I know Sean DePaz has talked to us a lot about how he loves going to Diamondbacks games because the place is often, kind of quiet and empty.
He can sit wherever he wants. He can find a spot that there's nobody at and just eat his 9 hot dogs and have a good time.
And the lines aren't bad, and it's easy to go to the bathroom. There's not a ton of people waiting there or anything. So.
I even said it on this show, and I said it in a joking fashion, but I'm not truly excited to be at weekend series and things like this, because as someone that is at Chase Field quite often, I kind of get set in my ways. And the fact that it's so easy to walk around and maneuver the concourse and find something to eat is something that my grumpy old ass can't stand when there's 45,000 people.
You want there to be 45,000 people.
Get the fuck out of my way. What is happening here?
It's oh, this is no fun at all.
But the atmosphere was incredible. So it's, obviously there's a lot there. It's kind of like the difference between sometimes wanting to go out and be around a lot of people. You want to go out and you want things to be popping. You want there to be a lot of people. But if you're just trying to get home from work, the last thing you don't want to work in Old Town till 8, 9 o'clock at night and then try to be getting out of there with that traffic is what I'm trying to say. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Brett asked us what we have as a solution. I don't really have one other than eat before you go, Brett. That's all I got for you.
I mean, I think that's just kind of the way it is. If you have almost 50,000 people in Chase Field, the lines are just going to kind of be like that. I will say that, and I think someone mentioned this in the chat as well. I went down and got food somewhere about midway through the game, and the line was not that bad. I waited for a little bit, but it was totally reasonable. So it might be more so don't go get food at the very beginning of the game. Yeah. I think that's when the lines are really, really crazy. But yeah, things died down as the game went along, and I didn't really see any huge issues with that last night.
What else we got, Damon? Kevin asks, you can only pick one. Says A, purple teal uniforms permanently. B, best concession.
That's it. I don't even need to hear B and C, Derek. I'm going to be honest here.
Jesse, you and I don't agree on much, but this is something we 100% agree on. I don't you're right. I don't even need to see the rest. Best concession food in MLB. I don't care, because if I'm wearing a purple and teal uniform, it could be the worst concession food in MLB. I'll be happy. Bobblehead giveaways, I don't give a shit. Give me a free purple and teal uniform and I'll be fucking happy. That's how it works. Nah, they are giving one away, and I'm still mad about the bobblehead, so that's not entirely true. But I don't need the most bobbleheads in baseball. I only have so much shelf space, to be honest. I felt
is that true, Derek? Are you sure?
Oh man, my shelf space is maximumed out, right? It's maxed out right now. Maybe I'll have to bring them in here and put them with the other ones that we got in here, but I don't know. I don't have any more space in my house. As a matter of fact, anytime they gave us more than 5 bobbleheads in the past, I felt like it was a bit suffocating because I needed to go get them. But did I have space for them? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Last question comes from, of course, Don's Bread. And Don's Bread asks, what's something baseball related that makes you feel like this? And for our audio listeners, there's just a sad dog wearing what appears to be a headset for possibly some sort of telecommunications company.
Is this a secret agent dog? Is that what this is?
I think this dog is collecting on people's mortgages is what I think this dog is doing. Because I've seen that same soulless look in my eyes, and it's when I used to have to collect on people's mortgages. But he wants to know what's something baseball related that makes you feel like this.
Well, I feel like I've changed my answer now because you just added so much more to this dog's story.
I really did, didn't I? I gave him a backstory.
I don't know if what I had in mind really fits.
Yeah. I'm going to say Scott Boras being Drew Jones's agent makes me feel like this.
Interesting. Okay.
It's this deadness inside that I can't really describe other than I just feel hopeless about the situation, despite the fact that it's far too early to feel that level of hopelessness. You get where I'm coming?
I get it. I get it. When people get angry about the pitch clock, would maybe be one of mine. I guess maybe that's a little bit more anger than just sadness.
No, but it's
as this
sadness.
dog appears to be
it's
emoting.
Sadness. You sat at nearly a 4-hour baseball game the other night, Jesse, and you have every reason to defend the pitch clock.
And I walked back to my car at about 1:30 in the morning in the streets of downtown Phoenix. It was quite an experience. It does make me sad when people are so critical of the pitch clock before I think they've really given it a chance. I understand that. Anytime you introduce something like that into a sport that's been around as long as this one has, and a sport that has as much tradition and as many traditionalists as this sport does, I understand there's an adjustment period there, but give it a shot. I feel like just about everyone should come around to this eventually.
I agree completely. I don't have more to say than that because we love the pitch clock. All hail the pitch clock, and we will not stand for any kind of pitch clock slander on this show. But before we talk more about that in the World Baseball Classic game, we want to tell you to check out More Furniture because, of course, More Furniture is the best place in the Valley for you to be buying your furniture. It's where Jesse needs to go to get his furniture because he just goes to this place called Chase Lounges R Us, and I don't even understand where that place is. I don't even understand why that kind of a business would have been able to survive a pandemic, but somehow been around for years. Jesse's favorite place to shop, but we need to get into More Furniture because he needs more furniture. And when I say more furniture, I mean things other than Chase Lounges. So also you guys get furniture for your house. So that way you can set a good example for this young man over here. Get that white glove delivery service. That way you can have the furniture not only brought to your house, but set up and you don't have to do a thing. All you have to do is lift your feet so that they can put a new ottoman underneath it. So save big on the best furniture in the Valley when you head to morefurniture.com. And more importantly, check out our website over at gophnx.com. We thank you guys for doing so. We thank you guys for being here. If you're here right now in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe to our channel, sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss when any of our shows go live. Leave us a thumbs up just to make these two guys feel good about ourselves. If you're listening on our favorite audio podcasting app or yours, we don't want to tell you what our favorite one is. So that's secret information. But if you're listening on your favorite audio podcasting app, make sure to subscribe to us there. Leave us a review. We always appreciate the feedback. And Jesse, of course, has some wonderful writing over at gophnx.com. Some of it is free. Some of it isn't. And if you want all of it, you need to sign up for a Diehard membership. Not only will you get his newsletter, the full count, not the full count. I'm not allowed to call it that. It's just full count.
Do you just mess it up so that you can correct yourself?
I don't know. It's just
that what you do?
No, it's like that doesn't make any sense that there's not a
for making as big of a deal about it as you do. You think you'd have a higher than 60% success rate.
He yells at me after every episode. You should see how mad he gets at me about it. But I'm telling you, full count newsletter. Get that from Jesse. Get Gerald. Get Craig. Get Howard. All the wonderful writers around here and all their newsletters. You also get access to our members only Discord lounge. You get free merch from the PHNXlocker.com. every single year as that you stay a member, as well as discounts up to 20% off future purchases. So make sure to sign up for that membership. Get members only merch, you get members only invites to events, and so much more. So sign up, join us, become part of the PHNX family. Gabe talked about the Die Hard jacket. That one is an absolute must. And Die Hard jacket, I'm going Die Hard jacket instead of Phoenix hoodie. She asked Phoenix hoodie or Die Hard jacket for the WBC tonight. It's a little warm. And I heard that it was a little warm in Chase Field because they had the roof closed, they had the panels closed.
They did have the roof closed.
They had 47,000 people rubbing up against each other and doing strikeout motions. I don't know if you guys saw those guys behind the home plate, but they were awesome. But the World Baseball Classic was awesome. The atmosphere was incredible. We actually have video from Jesse. This was after the second home run of the night by Mensis. And let's take a look at what this place looked like, man. Man, I love the sombreros. That was something. And that was
incredible.
That crowd was electric. Just absolutely awesome. And an insanely talented MLB lineup that just couldn't do anything against Team Mexico last night.
Yeah, it was kind of hilarious. I'm not going to lie. I mean, you have Team Mexico bringing out guys who haven't pitched. Some of them had never pitched a game in the big leagues. Their first few pitchers that Team Mexico brought out, reputable big league arms. Patrick Sandoval started the game and, is a solid pitcher who's already, spent some good time in the big leagues. But once they got toward the end of this game, Derek, these guys had no big league experience whatsoever, and Mookie Betts just couldn't figure it out. And the list goes on of star-studded names in this lineup, right? Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Bobby Witt Jr. It was crazy. I mean, it was basically, as I described it in the article that I wrote late last night, it was basically like you had like a high-end AAA team going against the National League All-Stars. And the high-end AAA team just dominating the game, from the first pitch of this one, essentially. So it was incredible.
And that's a great metaphor, because I feel like part of it might have been the fact that Team USA, with all of its major leaguers, has this pressure to perform, whereas a team like Team Mexico, which still has their fair share of major leaguers, still views it differently, right? Like, they want to beat USA, they want to come out, they want to attack, they want to be aggressive. Whereas Team USA might be thinking a little bit more passively, like, I just don't want to look bad. I hope this doesn't go hope, you know what I mean? Like, and again, it just might be the fact that baseball is this incredible sport that guys that, like we talked about with the Czech Republic team and everything else, right, just have this incredible story, and anybody can beat anybody on any given night. Any of these pitchers, especially with the pride of their country behind them, their flag on their shoulder, that team name across their chest, like, it just makes people perform at a different level. You talked about the closer connection that these players feel to playing for their country and that sense of pride, rather than necessarily just playing for your team that paid you money. That's
my hypothesis, is that, like, if you're a baseball player, you feel a close tie to whatever your major league team is, of course, right? But that can change very quickly, right? Players go from one team to another all the time in this game, but you don't go from one country to another to another, true. Right? Yeah, like you're, at least you shouldn't. I hope that's not. I hope there are rules against that. Your heritage is your heritage, and that's something that always sticks with you and is always going to be really an important part of who you are as a person, right? Like when you play for the D-backs, when you play for the Padres or whatever your team is, like, yes, you're gonna embrace that while you're there, but I don't know if it really becomes a part of like who you are as an individual as much as like the country that you're representing in the World Baseball Classic. And you could just see that on display so much in that game last night. It wasn't just the passion that the players were showcasing, it was the passion in the stands, right? Just how much everyone who came out, in particular to support Team Mexico, Team USA fans were out there as well, but there was no question. We tweeted it out. This was basically a home game for Team Mexico.
Absolutely was.
And you could just tell there was just this electric feeling in the ballpark that, like, the people who came out to support Team Mexico, that was part of who they are, right? Like, they just lived and breathed Team Mexico, right? Because that was part of who they are as people. And I just think that's a stronger connection than what any fan or player can really form with just one of these baseball teams.
Not to mention the fact that we have these opportunities coming up for some of these guys. Like, obviously, we've talked at length about how good Team USA is, Dominican Republic, but we have these great stories like Venezuela and other countries that are doing incredible things in this tournament. And it's not necessarily the team you think it would be, based on the fact that it's like this team comprised of former Major League Baseball players that retired years ago and names you've never heard of. But like, even for instance, in the Dominican Republic's matchup with Nicaragua, the DR won like they were supposed to, 6-1. But one of the beautiful stories about that is one of the Nicaraguan players, Duque Hebert, I think that's how you say his name, Hebert. He stole the show in the top of the 9th inning when he took to the mound and struck out Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez, and Rafael Devers back-to-back. That young man received a contract from the Detroit Tigers right after the game ended. So if
really,
right after the game ended,
that's crazy.
Yeah, and so like he reportedly signed the dotted line tonight. Today is Monday after the game. So like, you just have these incredible stories happening all around this tournament that just remind you about how wonderful baseball can be, but more importantly, why a tournament like this is so important. It not only makes us all love the game a little bit more and root for our country and kind of feel a bit patriotic, but there's things like this that are happening, and these guys, their lives are being changed by this opportunity in this tournament.
So is that Czech Republic guy who struck out Shohei Ohtani? Are we giving him 9 figures now? Is that how this works?
Sign his ass. I mean, we have so many other stories to talk about that we haven't even touched on. It was Joey Meneses, right? Is that how you say it?
I believe so.
Meneses? I got his name right.
My accent is very Meneses,
poor. 2 home runs in that game to lead Team Mexico. Our own Alec Thomas had a hit, and he scored a run. I think 2 hits, or was it 1 hit?
He had 1 hit, but he had a very hard line drive that was like 108 off the bat or something that was right at Jeff McNeil.
More importantly,
that's at least half a hit.
More
right?
importantly,
counts as half a hit.
He did what he does in center field at Chase Field, and he fucking dominated. His defense was incredible. So Merrill Kelly did not start. We don't know when he will start for Team USA.
I saw Gabriel say earlier he'll start on Wednesday. I haven't kept up on any of that today, but that wouldn't surprise me. I was expecting it to either be tomorrow or Wednesday.
It was a shame that we didn't get to see him pitch in this one, but
yeah,
Team USA almost mercy ruled close to it.
No,
right
it's not the mercy rule, Derek. It's the run rule.
I'm calling
right.
it, yeah,
that's the politically correct version of the mercy rule, and it did come close. I believe it's 10 runs or more, 7th inning or later, like when an inning is complete. We had an 11-2 baseball game in the 7th or 8th inning last night. So that would have been truly embarrassing for Team USA to get mercy ruled.
Well, and honestly, Team USA, this is the 3rd time out of the last 4 times that they've matched up with Team Mexico that they've lost. So Team Mexico just seems to have USA's number.
Yeah.
And Team USA really is on the verge of not advancing, which really, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
I think so. As of last night, yes. They were kind of in trouble. And there is still a scenario where Team USA doesn't advance for sure. And I mean, they still have to win 2 more games. We're kind of just assuming that they're going to win their next 2 games when that's obviously not guaranteed.
Not a given. Right.
But yeah, a big thing happened today, which was that Great Britain beat Colombia. And so the fact that Colombia now has a loss, Team USA plays against Colombia directly. If Team USA wins that game, that would bury Colombia. And then I think at that point, you're probably safe from a 3-way tie scenario. That would make it difficult for Team USA to advance. But they still have to win these next 2 games. They still have to beat Canada tonight. And then they also have to beat Colombia as well, would be the other one.
Great Britain's jersey, by the way, is the worst jersey I've ever seen in the history of professional baseball.
An abomination.
Not to mention today that on one of their pictures, the T, which they've been dropping quite a bit. You've seen their little celebration ceremony where they dip the tea and then drink it. The tea fell off the jersey. Is there a fucking Hollywood writer writing this entire tournament? I don't get between the Czech Republic, this shit. I can't even.
The Great Britain jerseys are so bad that I kind of love them.
They're so bad
that
I could make one right now in the next 15 minutes, and you probably wouldn't know if it was fake or not. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think I saw someone say this on Twitter, and it's totally true. I'm pretty sure they opened a Word document.
It is.
And they
it's
said
bold
it
Arial.
To Arial.
Yeah,
yep,
Arial.
Bold.
Yep.
Which
14
was,
font? 14
which was an edgy move on their part.
It really was.
They
Nobody uses fucking bold Arial
they weren't
anymore.
Sure if they wanted to go bold.
Yeah.
They thought about the italics. Yeah. They didn't feel comfortable with that.
But they're British, so they were like, is this too wild? And they were like, I don't know.
Right. So they made sure that it was just the dullest gray jersey that you've ever seen in your life, and then just black letters. And
it's straight out of 1892 is what it is.
Yeah. Is this what they wore like during the War of 1812? Or I don't know. It was pretty bad, Derek.
But anyway, we have so many more storylines to discuss. Max Scherzer had some thoughts, and we'll get more information for you on the World Baseball Classic tomorrow. We're also very excited on tomorrow's episode to be joined by Stefan and Chris Carey, the Amarillo Sod Poodles commentator, play-by-play, and much like us, when we take over the D-backs, they'll be like us. We'll be play-by-play and color together, but we're very excited to have the Carey brothers in here, so make sure to join us tomorrow.
They have some pretty legendary family history.
They do. I'm not sure if you've heard of their grandfather, but we'll talk about that, of course, and so much more. In the meantime, you guys should go out now and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Get down on the app and use code PHNX. If you're a new customer, you can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly, only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code PHNX. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. Of course, there's lots of bets to be putting out there, but if I was a betting man, which I am, I would put money on Corbin Carroll winning the Rookie of the Year, especially after this contract extension. And that's something that I already did. You guys know. You saw it. I did it on this show. So make sure to check out all of those future bets that you have for Major League Baseball and get down on the World Baseball Classic bets as well over at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Quick shout out to our friend Mountain Mike. He says he's not the real Mountain Mike, but that's bullshit. This guy's obviously a billionaire, just playing like he's not. But shout out to Mountain Mike's for not only feeding us so well, but of course, offering some of the best pizza in the valley that you can get at an absolute steal of a deal. Head over to mountainmikes.com or mountainmikespizza.com or to their Mesa, Chandler, Tucson location to place your next order. And here's the thing. If you are a PHNX Diehards member, you can get a $50 voucher for Mountain Mike's upon signing up for a new membership. So if you needed one more reason to sign up for a Diehard membership, there it is. Check out our friends at Mountain Mike's in Mesa, Chandler, and Tucson. So guys, thank you guys so much. Come back here Friday. We'll give away another Mountain Mike's 20-inch pepperoni pizza.
There you go.
In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at cap_caveman with a K. This guy's at Jesse N. Friedman. Our show is at PHNX_DBacks. But of course, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Is this our longest show ever?
This is absolutely our longest show. An hour and 12 minutes, and it's just too damn much. But
and we have more things on our rundown
we cut half of it out. Yeah, I'm sure we even cut a video or audio clip or two.
The Corbin Carroll extension just ruined all of our show.
We could just talk about that for the next month or two, 72 hours straight, but nobody wants that. Well, we thank you guys for being here for our longest show ever. On behalf of Damon, Jesse, and myself, we always appreciate your time. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you know exactly where you're going to play for the next 9 years.